anyway, I'm just gonna introduce our guest professor tonight for the Academy, who is uh, not only one of the greatest production designers in the history of production design. I would without even looking it up, I'm assuming that our teacher tonight is in the top 5, if not the top 1 to 2 people in terms of box office, for box office and just success, commercial success. Is that right? Is that right, Perry? Well, don't say anything yet, but you're definitely up there. But what makes our lecturer tonight, our guest professor tonight, really special is that he's one of the greatest people on the planet, and you guys will see that. What he was able to pull off on Murder Mystery 2 was absolutely incredible, including rebuilding the Eiffel Tower. He'll give you a little taste of it, and I don't want to take too much time, but I'm going to introduce with so much pleasure, the incredible Perry Blake.
That's my entrance. How are you guys all doing?
Good. Welcome.
Right,
Thank
cool.
you for being with us.
So you guys, some of you guys are in New York, I guess, upstate New York, and some of you guys are in other places. But Jeremy, that was a very, very nice and eloquent and way overstated, like amount of my success in. But I enjoy making movies, and I've got an opportunity to make quite a few movies, and it's always been it was not even a dream of mine, but by the time I got to do it, then I really realized that it was. So I'm going to kind of talk about this can be interactive, to some extent. I'm going to sort of break my presentation up into 4 or 5 different parts, and at the end of each one, we can talk a little bit. If there's questions, people can ask questions or whatever. Okay, so I guess I can just start from a little bit of my history, sort of like where I came from. I grew up in Los Angeles, and my grandfather was a set designer and a carpenter and a painter in the movie industry. So when I was a little kid, he was telling me about these things, but for some reason, it never really came into my mind that would be a thing that I would want to do, even though I liked art and that sort of thing, because that's really the basis of everything that I do. But so I just I went to college, and I first studied art, and I realized after a little bit that everybody's better than me at actually doing art or painting or drawing. And I thought, well, I still like this. And also I realized to be an artist is hard to have it be a real job. So I thought, okay, I'm going to do something that's more like a real job. And I decided to study architecture. So I went to architecture school and studied architecture. And when I got out, I'm from Los Angeles. So I came back from Cambridge, where I studied in school there. And I worked for an architect in Los Angeles named Frank Gehry. And when I was there, I just started meeting people that just seemed to be in the film business. And little by little, one of the friends that I met said, do you want to production designer, art direct I have a little movie now. I was like, oh, okay, I guess. I don't know what that even means. But I came and we looked at a location, and then I painted it, and I got some furniture, and I did some stuff. So I slowly got into being doing art direction and production design as it's called. And that friend was a commercial director, and he started directing commercials, and he had a partner who started directing commercials, and I just started doing commercials, and pretty soon I wasn't really doing architecture anymore. Other than that, basically what I do most of the time as a production designer is some form of architecture, really, because I'm designing, buildings and houses and interiors, and we'll talk a little bit about all the things that are part of my job. So I did set design and art direction for a bunch of commercials. I don't know, maybe 100 over the course of like, 3 or 4 or maybe almost 5 years. I was doing commercials, and it was great because I got to do small ones and big ones. And sometimes I would do everything on it because it would be a small commercial, and I would, build a wall and paint it, or get the props, or take a picture out of my house and a couch out of my house or a chair and bring it to a set. And then, I just did everything. I just put it in the back of my, in the back of my truck and whatever. Just I did all the different parts. But the thing about it is, as Malcolm Gladwell says, to learn your craft, you need to do 10,000 hours. And I think I probably did my 10,000 hours in a matter of a pretty short amount of time, because I just did a ton of different things all the time. And by the time I was getting a little bit further along, I was getting to do bigger commercials and things where I was building big things and had special effects. So, but a lot of it was just volunteering for little films and friends films and small commercials and things like that. And I would say that's one of the things that you have to do, is you, as far as whatever you're gonna do in the film business. A lot of it is just making friends with people who are doing the same thing as you. It's what you guys are doing now is the kind of thing, the people that were my friends in the beginning, and we just, none of us really knew what we were doing hardly. And we just started doing it, and we helped each other, and we learned, and you kind of learn as you go along. The famous phrase, the fake it till you make it, is really kind of a real thing. And that goes directly into my next thing. At one point, one of my commercial director friends said, "Do you want to do this small movie? It's with one of these a guy that we did a frozen hamburger spot with." I'm like, who is that? And they go, "No, this guy, I don't know if you remember him. His name's Adam Sandler." And I'm like, yeah, I think I remember him. Is he on Saturday Night Live? And they said, yeah, he's just on Saturday Night Live now. So I said, yeah, whatever. I want to do a movie. So I did my first movie, which was Billy Madison, Adam Sandler's first movie. And like I said, we didn't do anything. We didn't know anything. I don't think Adam Sandler hardly knew anything, because we were all this young and we were just like making it up. And people didn't even really think he was that funny. He did stand up. Sometimes he'd get booed off the stage and stuff. But this last line, but I just kept going, and mainly just because I love movies. So I'll kind of like flash through some of the movies, just kind of my career more or less. I've done a lot of movies. This isn't all of them, but I think some of these are probably ones that either I liked a lot, or they were just important because just because they were my first movie. Like this here's Billy Madison, and this is my first movie, and Adam Sandler plays a grown-up who goes back to school. That was fun. We did it in Toronto, and again, like I said, I didn't know what I was doing at all. The second one we also made in Canada because it was really cheap in those days, and we made this movie called Happy Gilmore, which is about a hockey player who goes into the PGA, and he has a really bad temper. And we kept going there. We did one called The Water Boy, which was another one where he has bad temper. He has bad temper in a lot of the movies. As you'll notice, Adam Sandler is my main guy. I worked with him, throughout my career, and we kind of grew up together. And if you've seen any of these movies, they're pretty goofy and pretty funny, but weird. And this was the first movie that was not quite as weird as the other ones, where he played with Drew Barrymore. He plays a wedding singer, and then we did another one where he played a stepdad of this little kid. He's teaching him how to like pee here on this against this door. And then along the way, I sort of did, I don't know how exactly why, but I sort of got like I did a bunch of sort of stoner movies. I guess it was the time of stoner movies. So I did this one called Half Baked with Dave Chappelle, and he was funny, and I have plenty of stories from that movie, but I could tell you in some other private time. And then I did another movie called Grandma's Boy, which is maybe 10 years later, something like that. Again, pretty much of a stoner movie. Then I did another one, which it's called Joe Dirt with David Spade, which he is just a stoner. So sort of continuing on that same thing. But all in between there, I was doing other movies, Adam's movies and different people. I got to do Adam made an animated movie, which was a Hanukkah movie, and called Eight Crazy Nights, and that was the first time I ever worked on the production design of an animated movie, which was really me just sort of designing all the different stuff that you can see and what the town looks like and what kind of illustrations it's going to be. Is it going to be CGI? Is it going to be like is it going to be like technical, or is it going to be like hand drawn? And we sort of decided it was going to be hand drawn, so it was more kind of intimate and old school like. But that was fun doing that. And then I started doing movies with some of his friends, like Kevin James. I did this movie called Mall Cop, where he's a mall cop, and then he sort of got a little bit into family movies as we kind of like went along, and then Adam just basically, got all his friends, Kevin James again, and Chris Rock, and David Spade and Rob Schneider, and sometimes people say, why does Adam have all the same people in his movies? But it's kind of like it's really like a troupe of actors that are his friends, and he likes making movies with them, and mainly because he just thinks they're funny. So, and they all like each other, and they have a good time. This is a more recent movie. A few years ago, we made a cowboy movie, which as a young designer, I always just thought it would be cool to make a cowboy movie. And we went to New Mexico and made this. And these are all supposed to be brothers from a same father, different mother. And Terry Crews is in it, and Taylor Lautner, and Rob Schneider again, and Luke Wilson. And we got to go out into the New Mexican landscape and create a lot of things. And I'll talk a little bit more in a minute about how landscapes or locations and how set design works with that, because we did a lot of things that were in the real landscape, but were things that we built. And then we did a few more, where this one's called Click, where he has this remote control, and he gets to like fast forward and like over part of his life, or go slow-mo in the parts that he liked. This was a fun movie for me to design, because it went into the future, so I designed a lot of things that were futuristic, like futuristic cars and houses and various things. Recently, we did a basketball movie with Adam Sandler and LeBron James producing it, and this is just maybe 2 years ago, which was Adam plays an down and out basketball scout for the 76ers, and so as the movies have gone along and Adam's gotten older, he sort of is some of his movies are still obviously weird and goofy and funny, but some of them are starting to get are a little bit more I guess you'd say, I don't know if I would say they're just more mature a little bit, and he starts to deal with things that are not as juvenile, and like not so many fart jokes and poop jokes and stuff. But there's always a few still. He can't help himself. At one point, I directed a movie, this was a kids comedy with this a comic named Dana Carvey. He plays a guy who can go into all different disguises, and he played all these bunch of different parts in the movie. And what's kind of crazy about this is there's kind of like a cult following of this. And last year there was some kind of anniversary for it, I forget, but there was a podcast that these guys had, which are really kind of crazy people, I would say, because they decided they're going to watch Master of Disguise once a week for a whole year. So they watched it every week, and they did it 52 times, and they do a podcast every week. So I don't know, that was crazy. I talked to him a few times. They sort of interviewed me and talked to me about it, but it's pretty weird that someone who would watch a movie 50 times. And now sort of brings us more up to the current time. We had a few years ago, we did this movie called Murder Mystery with Adam Sandler and Jennifer Aniston. And they're both great. And not only are they both really great people and fun, they're both down to earth and great. Even though they're very, very rich, they're still kind of, there's some element of their just being normal people still. And we did this movie, and we shot it. Part of it, I built sets in Montreal, and then we went to Italy to shoot some half of the movie, because basically they're regular people from like Brooklyn, and they get mixed up with some rich people to solve a murder. It's basically like an Agatha Christie kind of a movie, and people like that. And it's this on Netflix, and it was one of the more popular movies that year. So of course, how studios do, they decided if people like one, then they're probably gonna like two. So just last year, this year it came out, but Jeremy was a director of this, and Jeremy was just an awesome director, super fun to work with, and just really knew his shit and always prepared. And also he had a lot of people to wrangle, because he had not only Adam and Jennifer, but the cast it's a cast of like eight or nine kind of like main characters, and some of the scenes, all the characters are in it. So I'm going to go as we go through the rest of the different the presentation or whatever. I'm going to use murder mystery kind of as like a case study and talk about some different things about it, just because it was really fun, and it's recent. I don't know if you've seen it. There might be some spoilers in it. I'll try to tell you. I'll probably not tell you who the murderer is, but I think it'll be fun to kind of go through it. But before we start that, I just kind of wanted to just say, so what is production design? And I know a lot of you guys, you're film buffs and you're interested in it, and you probably already know this, but I just thought for maybe not everybody maybe knows everything about what all the jobs are, but the production designer, basically it's everything you see in a movie except for the actors and their costumes. Like when you're watching a movie, everything else that you're looking at is basically something that a production designer is supervising or looking for or designing or whatever. So for example, the locations, whether it be a jungle or a mountaintop or a city, things that are in nature, or if it's more urban, it's a city, it's a inside buildings, or it's a home, or it's a suburban house, whatever things in the movie that are real that you're looking at. The production designer has location scouts that go and look for things, and basically I would talk with the director and probably put together some pictures of the kinds of things that I'm thinking that it seems like it might be like, these are the kind of locations, and I'll show them to the director. And this is really the case for all the things that we do. It's always a collaboration with the director. Producers usually have some kind of say in it, so that because they're the ones that have the money. And so, if there's money aspects to it, they're going to have, they'll have something to say about it. Sometimes they go along with it. Sometimes they just think it's outrageous and it's way too much money. And then you got to figure out another way to do it, which is more acceptable for the budget. But locations is one of the main things that you do. And you start scouting early on in the movie. And in a minute, I'll show you some pictures of when we started scouting Murder Mystery 2. One of the other main things is, of course, are the sets that production designer designs. And I'll have a whole team of people that I work with that are set designers and special effects people, and just the people who can draw and illustrate and design a set almost the way that you design a house. Now this is either something that you build on stage, and one of the things I'll show you from Murder Mystery 2 is a wedding that we did on the stage, completely on the stage, and except for the outside of it, which I'll show you how we did that. Or it's again, it's on a location, and we did have different things on locations where we would build things that are sets. They're not there before we get there, and I'll show you some of those things, and kind of how that you find a location that you like, and then you think, okay, this is good, or this is good, but maybe we want to have some mountains off in the distance, or maybe I remember we went to this one, and I'll show you it in a minute. Jeremy wanted the water to be very blue, and so we had to have to use CGI and things to like tweak certain things. So that's also part of it. Also, if you're in nature, there's all the plants and grass and things like that a lot of times the location might not have, and so you have to add, or you want to make it more beautiful, and you want to add flowers and things like that. Set decoration, each one of these is a job. Like there's a person who's a greensman and that, or a greens person, and they do all the plants on the movie. There's a set decorator that's on the movie, and the set decorator is putting anything into a set that there is, because the set will be built, but it'll just be like an empty room. So, even if there's wallpaper, they'll I'll work with them on the wallpaper that we want, the carpet they want, all the furniture, the couches, the paintings, all the different things that are in the room. Or let's say it's like the show The Last of Us, and they're going to city that just looks like a regular city, but it's supposed to be, overgrown with plants, and it's supposed to be like dilapidated. So your crew of set building people will go and paint everything to look like it's old, and they'll maybe add some things that are like breaking off of the buildings, and they'll add greenery that's growing all over it. So that's an example of, using the location, because certain things are just so big that you're going to have to use real things. You can't build a whole city, but you can take something and modify it. So that's always cool, taking something that exists and then turning it into the thing that you want. Just a description of other things that are like props. Props are basically the way you differentiate a prop is anything that an actor will pick up or touch. If he picks up this coffee cup, or even he puts on glasses. So glasses, you would think that might be part of a costume designer's part, but glasses they're not. They decided that glasses are part of props. Phones, especially phones now. So, and also with phones, everything that's going to be on the phone is now the prop master does that. So that means there has to be a graphics person, which I didn't even put graphics on here, but graphics is another thing. And in movies and TV, there's tons of graphics, especially now when there's screens everywhere. People are on laptops or phones or all the different things. So if somebody's on a phone and they're supposed to be talking to the person on the phone, then there's a picture of them if it's a FaceTime, or maybe it's just their screensaver or whatever. But in the recent years, you used to be like, if somebody's on a phone, they'd be talking, and right here, like right off of the side of the screen, right there would be the other actor, and they'd be talking to him. Especially that's a courtesy that actors give to their other actors, that when they're doing a scene, when they're off camera, they still come, they stay, and they do the part if it's on the phone. Something that we've been doing lately more, just to make it even feel more real, is sometimes we'll do, and you would think this would be the obvious thing, but we'll actually have the other actor like go in another room someplace and call on the phone, and they're really talking on the phone. And we sort of found that like there's certain ways of talking or dealing with the phone when you're really talking with the person, that makes it feel more realistic. You're talking, you might look at your phone, whereas if a person is just off camera doing it, it's not quite the same. And also the way the sound comes through is different. But so props are all different things that a person touches. Vehicles is also a thing that would be part of my responsibility to choose like cars, or if there's a spaceship that needs to be designed, or if there's like motorcycles, or like any kinds of vehicles are also part of that, part of the production design. And the final thing, which is more and more of CGI kind of work now, is either it's in our movie. I'll show you a couple things when you're seeing some of the real movie, that it's real, but it's modified. So the water is bluer, and there's some mountains out there that we added, and there's a sunset that's coming across there, or it might be the Mandalorian, and basically everything that you see is made up. Either it's filmed and then put on a blue screen, which when we talk about the Eiffel Tower, we built a set and there's blue all the way around it, so you could just see the city outside of the Eiffel Tower that we built. So sometimes it's just it's completely made up. It's all art. Obviously it's not anything that's real. So that's just to start with the locations. Now I'm gonna talk a little bit about locations, and this is a little bit of a deep dive, but usually just so you kind of have an idea. At the beginning of the movie, we make a thing called a location or a set list, and we divide it up like in the Murder Mystery 2, there's that says, you can't probably see, but it says New York, and there's a bunch of stuff that happens in New York. And then there's a bunch of stuff that happens, says overseas, but it's really supposed to be on a tropical island. And then the end of the movie all takes place in Paris. So when we look at this, I start going through it and I think, okay, elegant nightclub. First of all, we decide, well, we're not going to go to New York and a tropical island and Paris. That's too many things. We're going to go to Paris and we're going to go to some tropical island. So then I know that these things up here in the New York part, either I have to build them or I have to find them in either tropical island or in Paris. So like in a Murder Mystery 2, the nightclub ended up being, we found it in Paris, but there was a suburban house, which is supposed to be an American suburban house. And we couldn't really find that in Paris. So we ended up building that, but as you go through, we just started looking at things and thinking, we usually try to see if we can do them. We can find something because it's cheaper and sometimes it's more realistic to find something like in the clip that I'll show you in a minute of the tropical island. They come into a villa and then you look out and you see this amazing view. Part of scouting and part of doing everything beforehand is there's a lot of research, and even part of the scouting, sometimes there's ideas that you get that you use, even if we decide that in the end we decided we would build this beautiful villa just because we had too much work in there and a lot of people, and we just figured it ended up being cheaper and easier, and for me better, because then I can make it exactly how I want. So basically, you sort of go through all the sets and you figure out, okay, what can be a real thing and what has to be a set. Like we have this one set called the Chateau Lumiere, and what happens in that is there's a fire. It's a chateau and a castle that has a big fancy room and it catches on fire. So right off when I see that, I'm just thinking, okay, nobody who owns a castle is going to let us set it on fire. So, and we're not going to be able to like make it look like it's fire. We're going to have real fire, and then maybe we might augment it with fake fire. So then we know, okay, we're going to have to build that set because we got to make fire in it. Like when we finally get to the Eiffel Tower in a minute, I went up on the Eiffel Tower and I know, okay, it's going to be wintertime and we're going to be on the top of it and we're going to be there at night. And the director and the producer just said, I don't think all the actors want to be up on the top of the Eiffel Tower in the middle of the winter in Paris and shooting all night for like 20 nights in a row. So sometimes it's something that doesn't even have to do with the fact that you couldn't do it. Although when I talk about that in a minute, that it really wasn't possible for what we needed to do anyway. So that's basically, looking at locations and sort of dividing them up. And sort of that's the first thing that I usually do, of course, after reading the script and getting an idea what the movie's going to look like. So maybe we can do, why don't we do this? I'm going to stop sharing for a minute. And Andie is going to play a little clip of, oh, actually, I have one more thing, I think. Or did we already? No, we didn't do it yet. You haven't played the first clip, right?
No, I have the island clip.
The island clip, yeah. So let's play the island clip. Yeah. So this is basically, actually, let me do one more thing first. I'll do one more little piece here.
Harry, where in the timeline of film does the production designer get involved and like start working? Like how far before actual production?
I started working on this movie, and this ends up being a pretty big movie in the end because so many things are happening. And I started working on it, I think, in the beginning of July and then I worked on it through July and through the fall. And by the fall, I was designing sets, and then we started shooting it at the end of the fall, and then we shot it in the winter. So we shot some of it in the islands, and then the other. So basically, like 9 months in advance. Like if you're working on something that's bigger, like a Marvel movie, people start working on those like 2 years in advance, especially if it's all things that have to be built, like spaceships and buildings that are blowing up and things like that. But Like this is a pretty big movie, so I was working out maybe 9 events in advance, but some kind of regular movies where it's just people and they're talking and they're in a city and they have apartments. I might work on that for maybe like 4 months, starting scouting and then designing the sets and things like that. So maybe, yeah, 4 months or 5 months, something like that before. But again, if you're doing a small movie, sometimes like, I've done all different size movies, and some, if it's a small movie that's going to be, we're only going to shoot for like 20 days, which is like, 4 weeks more or less. I might only start working on it like, 5 weeks before and just look for locations really fast and know we're not going to build that many sets because there's not enough money to do that. And then you start and then you go into it. So I went to the Caribbean first, and usually I go before the director goes, because they don't want to like be trooping all over the country or all over. But that's also fun for me. I like that. This is like probably one of the most fun things that I get to do in my job is like go to different places and just scout and look for things. And again, as I'm going, I'm taking tons of pictures and having ideas about things. And even though I know maybe I'm not going to shoot in this place, there's things that I like about it, and there's pictures that I like that they're stored away in my brain and they come back later. And I'll show you a few things like that as we kind of go along. One is these mountains in this place in St. Lucia. It's an island way down almost by South America, but it had these amazing mountains, these pointy mountains called the Pitons in this beautiful bay. And these just kind of like stuck with me. And I really like this. And then also there's some cool piers that were there, because we had a scene where a helicopter is going to land on a pier. So I was sort of looking at those kind of things. My hope was originally that we were going to shoot on this. This was my favorite island. And here's these mountains called the Pitons. And this is actually a hotel. And this is inside of a somebody's room, a room that has a pool inside the room, up on this mountainside. So I thought this was the best, and I wanted everybody to come here. And we came with the director and the producers, and it was pretty awesome. But they eventually decided, well, I'll tell you in a minute what we ended up doing. But there's a lot of really cool stuff. We went to Puerto Rico and looked at the hotels there and started seeing like, oh, look at how cool the water is. It's so blue and the sand is so white. It looks cool. And then we're looking at different kinds of architecture. This little building I saw, which is a little entrance building, and I just thought, this is really exotic. I mean, it feels like you're someplace. This looks like up here. This looks like sort of colonial architecture, but then I like this because this looks like it'd be somewhere in the South Seas or like in Thailand or someplace more exotic. So this kind of stuck in my mind, and you'll see that make a comeback at some point. Or a cool bridge that goes across the water, but there's mountains and palm trees all around it. That comes back at a certain point too. And as I'm going, I'm just looking at things, getting inspired, looking at weddings, because we have a wedding and we didn't know if we wanted it on a beach or what we want to do. Now this is Antigua. It's an island, another island, which is amazing. That actually is part of it is this little island here. And we almost went there, but we realized that every single day, everybody would have to come to work on a boat, and we have to get all of our stuff out there on the boat. So sometimes they're just logistical things, but beautiful sand beaches with blue water. Those are the things that started getting in my mind, and also in Jeremy's mind. It's like, we really have to have this blue water to have it be tropical, or like a cool pier that goes out into the water. So we sort of went through. I took them back to the director and the producers back to maybe about 5 different islands, including this one, which is the Four Seasons, which was, we landed on that island way over there, and then we took a boat onto this island, and then when we arrived, they had out on this dock, they had a huge party all set up with a steel drum bands and food and a bar. They were with a rum bar. So that was our first night. We didn't get much done that first night except for drink some rum and listen to some music. But it's on this island with a big volcano, and it was incredible. And also when we were going, it was during COVID, and we literally went, and there were only maybe like 10 other people staying at this whole giant Four Seasons hotel, which I felt really sorry for all the people, and they really wanted us to come. But in the end, as things would have it, since COVID was so big, we had talked about going to, to some of these like kind of countries that you haven't even, because almost every island is a different country, so they have all their different COVID protocols and things. So eventually, we just it was decided that I think Jennifer Aniston said, I don't think I want to go to far away and go on to some crazy island where we don't know if they have like good hospitals or anything. So then out of all the places that we went, all these places, they said, why don't we just go to Hawaii? So basically we went to Hawaii, and I went to Hawaii, and then I went to all the different islands there, Kauai, which is amazing, and Hawaii, the big island, and Maui. And then we ended up shooting on Oahu, the most normal island that probably everybody's been to Oahu. So, but we did learn a lot of things as we went along. We went on boat rides and helicopter rides, and we saw so many things in our travels that that came into play later on as we kind of like went along. So what now? Andie's going to play a little piece, and I think it's about maybe a couple minutes long, maybe 3 or 4 minutes long. A clip, which is, you'll see it's the arrival of Adam and Jennifer arriving on this sort of secret island, it was called, and it's supposed to be someplace like Fiji, but it's really in Hawaii. But as you look at it, remember some of the things that I showed you in those location pictures, because you're going to start to you'll see some of those things pop up in what is Hawaii. So when people see the movie, they always wonder like where it is. And sometimes we like to throw them off so that it doesn't look like when they went on their Hawaiian vacation like last summer. So you'll be able to see something. So Andie, why don't you go ahead and play the little clip? All right. So that's a little bit of locations, and you can see how we would, and ended up on a location that, it has a similar feel from all the things that we saw in the Caribbean, but ended up being like in Hawaii, so it was easy to work. And also we just used a lot of CGI to add mountains and make the waters bluer. And even the first shot where you saw the helicopter, we wanted to see more beach, so we made big long white sand beaches, just so that seems like it's part of being a tropical paradise, seeing a white beach. So a lot of the things that we do, it sort of have to do with just in a way, people's expectations of what is some tropical paradise would be like. So let's see. So let's go to the next thing, which when we start on doing a set, one of the first things we do is we start to we just do research, which is kind of obvious. I start researching Indian weddings and looking at pictures, and I actually went to a really big Indian wedding that was in Paris, and it was like insane. They spent like $10 million. So that was bigger than our wedding that we were going to have, but still I got a lot of ideas. So we started putting together Indian wedding references, and Jeremy and I are doing this together. It's my job to sort of give him some ideas and show pictures, and then he makes comments and kind of gets it sort of going along in the direction that we want to do it. So we knew that we wanted it to be on the water, like the dock that they came up is here, and then there's water out. We knew it, and we wanted them to come into the wedding, like walk through some outdoor area that had some tents and party was going on. There's fireworks, and then they're going to come into the actual wedding. So this is a tricky part, because we knew we're going to do this part, the outside in Hawaii, and then we knew we were going to build the set in Paris, and I'll tell you why in a minute. So these are some of our illustrations. This is part of it is an actual picture, and then we're going to build this little bridge. And remember, I saw that other bridge from in one of the other pictures. And a lot of there's always seemed like there was always tiki torches and things. We wanted to hang lights in all the lanterns in the trees. So the place that we found was in Hawaii was a big flat green area that had these big trees with water off here. And then we started getting the idea that we wanted to walk up, and there's these other outdoor tents, and people are just, all hanging out and partying. There's guys on stilts and all sorts of kind of crazy things. we did end up getting to have a tiger there, but that was still okay. But we wanted them to walk up, and then there's going to be a big tent that they're going to go through. And then by the time they go through the doors of the tent, now we're going to be in a set in Paris. So again, we started looking at just Indian wedding references, and there was a ton of them. Really, they're just amazing. They have flowers and draperies and all sorts of like chandeliers, and they always sometimes there's elephants. And we were going to do it in a big tent. So when we were in Paris, we started looking at different kinds of tents that they had, that they do fashion shows in and stuff. And then we finally decided, well, we're going to be inside a tent the whole time. We don't really need to have it. We don't need to be outside where it's raining. We can just be inside of a soundstage, but we'll just make the inside of a tent. So we'll make it look like there's an inside. There's a part where they walk in, and that's going to be in Hawaii. And there's a part where Adam's character goes out of the back of the tent, and we shot a little piece of him going out of a tent over in Hawaii also. But yeah, so we looked at all these different things, and also since it's an Indian wedding, we want it to be real and correct. So we got a consultant who is a wedding planner in Mumbai, and she was great, and she was just super helpful on telling us, oh, there's usually a place where the bride is, and she usually comes down. They usually have a big entrance how she gets there. And this was a really interesting picture for me, because I saw there's so many flowers, and I just thought, these look like clouds made out of flowers. That's a cool idea. Maybe we could integrate something like that into it, and like this where she would come down on some steps. So we just kind of looked at different things, and we saw tons of draperies, and one thing we started saying, and this was a suggestion of Jeremy's, it's like, because a lot of them had a lot of color, and we thought, well, the people are going to have a lot of color on their clothes, the guests. So why don't we do the background more of a neutral color, and then we can light it. We can make it any color we want. Either we can make it red or orange, or we can make it purple or white. Another thing I saw is this really cool like kind of entrance where they kind of came through a tunnel of flowers, and that was another thing that like I thought. By the way, I'm just giving all my secrets away, that I don't really think of anything myself. Basically, I just steal everything from other people who have done stuff before, or real weddings, real Indian weddings or whatever. But you just see things and you think, wow, that looks cool. Again, like flowers, and maybe like trees that they could come through when they enter. And there's a lot of things that were sparkling and hanging from up above. I just like that there was stuff that was hanging, that not only was it just a tent, but that it had a lot of things that sort of like twinkled and sparkled. One of the other things we talked about with Jeremy is that it's an Indian wedding, but it's also it's the bride is French. So we thought, well, why don't we try to make it a mixture of the two? So we started looking at different things that were really French, like super big French crystal chandeliers, and things that we might be able to integrate in that are more French. But we did love a lot of things that were hanging, and as we started looking at these colors, we knew we could light it to be however we wanted. So we kind of made it neutral, and then you'll see in the end that it became fairly colorful. But the other thing that we saw some sculptures, and I saw this Indian sculpture, and it kind of reminded me of a Rodin sculpture, which is called the Kiss, famous sculpture. And I thought, wouldn't it be cool? We'll do a sculpture as like an Indian version of the Kiss, and then we'll do the actual like a version of the Rodin French sculpture. And so when they come into the wedding venue, into the tent, we had a sculptor sculpt something that was like this, and then another one which you don't see here, but it's actually just like a copy of the Rodin Kiss sculpture, to kind of show the merging of the two different cultures together. And again, usually the groom enters on some sort of fantastic way, and this is obviously for a really rich person's wedding. Like everybody they don't arrive on elephants. So, but we started looking at elephants, and actually one of the reasons we ended up in Hawaii, or we ended up building the set for the interior of the wedding in Paris is because there was just really no way to get an elephant to Hawaii. There weren't any there in any zoos, and we were all opposed to like bringing an elephant there, and that would be kind of cruel. And so we decided, okay, we're not going to do that. And eventually we realized that even in Europe, there's African elephants, but this elephant should be an Indian elephant, and really hard to bring an Indian elephant, and also, again, cruel. So we just decided in the end, we're just going to have a CGI elephant, and you'll see it in a couple of minutes. It looked pretty good, I thought. And what we did is we built a big structure, kind of a green structure, because green screen, basically. And then it had some sort of legs on it with wheels, and then underneath it were some guys walking along with green pants on and green shoes, who were like just walking and pushing the elephant in. But there's a real guy on the top of it, but he's just sitting on this big kind of green lumpy thing that's the size of an elephant. So then after that, then the CGI graphics people could create an elephant, and they had something to work off of, and there was something that our real guy was sitting on. So that's kind of like part of the reason we shot the outside of the party of the wedding in Hawaii, and then the inside in Paris. But then in the end, we didn't need an elephant anyway. So some nice things like that happen. You go, why do we do this? And then you think, oh yeah, we're doing it for a reason that doesn't even exist anymore. So again, set decoration, that's draperies and table settings and flowers, and all those things are all part of the set decoration. And there's a person who's the set decorator, and that person is just in charge of all of it. So that's really a huge job. And even when there's a production design for the Academy Award for production design is given to two people, the production designer and the set decorator, because it really is a really strong collaboration between those two. The production designer, his job is to conceive of the whole thing, but really in the end, the set decorator, she's the one, or he's the one, that finds this exact couch. They get these fabrics, they make these flower arrangements, they do so much, basically inside of our wedding, which you're going to see in a minute, almost structure of it. We looked at ones that had, tents that kind of went up like that. And again, there's tables inside of a wedding, and there's, it has, chairs and tables and candles and food. And again, food is actually like, a cake, for example, if the cake is just sitting on a table at the wedding, or this little thing with some food, then that's the set decorator does that. But if people start eating the food, then that's the prop master. So they have to make food that's going to be some food that's going to sit there for a few days, and they take it back and try to keep it refreshed. But some food that the people in the movie are going to eat, like in the movie, Jennifer Aniston actually eats some of the food, and so that has to be real food. And so that was good. We were in Paris, and we got to go around and go to all of the best Indian restaurants and try their food to see what was the best. And they had some pretty good food there. Again, props, different kinds of things like bouquet that you might throw, different kind of things that people might be eating. And you'll see there's some other props. There's a hookah that the guys that our main characters are smoking at some time. But so there's things that are props that people are eating as somebody's taking them around. So you can see if anybody's touching the thing, now it becomes a prop. So let's go, and I think let's see, what do I have next? Oh, so now I just have a few pictures of our illustrations and things of the wedding, because now that's been the research, and now we have to think exactly what we're going to do. So one of the thing that I talked about, like I saw these clouds that were made out of flowers, and I thought, how cool it would be for the bride to come like down out of the clouds. And in Indian weddings, the brides, they don't wear white, they wear red. So I thought, why don't we make these kind of purpley white clouds, and we're going to make it, and we're going to work with the special effects people who can make rigs and motors to like make people move and come down. I said, let's try that. So we did this. I hadn't told Jeremy about it, and I thought, I think the best way to do it is just to like show him a picture of it. So we made this picture And I showed Jeremy, because we hadn't really had an idea how she was going to enter, and I said, what if she comes out of the clouds like this? And he loved it, and he said, that's great. And so I was pretty stoked, because then we made these clouds, which again, all this stuff is like people making it, like somebody making a whole cloud out of you know, fake flowers. Like it took somebody like 2 weeks to make the cloud, you know. So some of the things just take a long time, but we also wanted there to be a back area that looked like it was kind of reminiscent. It was not supposed to be real, but it was supposed to be reminiscent of what might be outside. Another part is we knew that the groom is going to enter on an elephant. So we decided he was going to come through a curtain. And originally we were thinking of having him come through the same curtain. Then we figured out that was that it was going to be too hard to bring him through where the steps are. And so but basically the idea was that the curtain would start to open up and it'd be dark, and then you'd start to see a silhouette, and then the elephant would come out. In the movie, we ended up making it be, instead of it being dark, we had light come blazing out, and we had smoke and stuff coming out. So it was like even more, a little bit more dramatic. But so this is again one of our illustrations of what it's going to look like with the elephant. And we also, since we are lighting the whole thing, we decided the first part of the wedding is going to be cooler colors, but by the time the groom comes out, and we also know this is going to be kind of like a big, not this is a spoiler, but this guy who comes out, you think it's the groom, and then he falls off the elephant and onto the ground, and everybody thinks, and he's got a knife in his back, and everybody thinks the groom's been killed, but then it ends up being his bodyguard, the guy you saw a little while ago. He got stabbed, and then the groom has been kidnapped. So so these are just a few stills from the movie, and we'll see a little clip of the movie in a second. But this is them walking up to the outside of the wedding for all sorts of activity going on along outside there. This is them coming through, that idea of them coming through this little tunnel of flowers, of fleet tree flowers, and then they come into the main wedding tent, and you can see this is all this fabric, and these are like big, huge, gigantic French chandeliers, and then this is our bride coming down. This whole big cloud thing comes down, and then she steps off of that, and then she walks down this staircase, and then she comes out, and they do a big, cool, fun, like Bollywood dance number, which was really fun. We had great Indian choreographers that did it, and they just did a really good job. And then this is kind of like a lounge area, because they don't sit so much at tables. People are all kind of lounging on pillows, and these guys are smoking a hookah here, and Adam gets really loopy from smoking the hookah. So this is the elephant, but he's not a real elephant. That's a CGI element that's in there, but he came out of this area over here, and he comes and he walks out here, and then the guy falls off dead down here on the ground, and everybody looks at him there. So this is, and again, we knew there would be a high shot, so we made a floor, really designed for a floor that we printed on some kind of, actually, like on linoleum, on the backside of linoleum. So that is basically the wedding. So that's an example of a set that's just built completely, just a set, not connected to any location, other than when you see it here in a minute, you'll see them coming up, and that's a real location, and they go through the door, and then after that they're inside. So why don't you go and go ahead and play it. So that's our little wedding that we made there in Paris. I guess we could have some questions, if anybody has any questions, before we get on to our final thing, which is going to be the Eiffel Tower in the end. Anybody has anything? Questions?
Maria, go ahead.
Hi. So in the beginning, you were mentioning that the best way of getting inside the film business is to volunteer. I was wondering, in the beginning of our careers, how should we, like, I actually know, I'm going to ask about yourself. How did you sustain yourself, like, financially doing a lot of volunteer work? Like, did you have a side business, or I don't know, like just in this beginning phase of volunteering?
That's a very good question. Well, usually you maybe still have to have some kind of a day job, and you do especially if you're volunteering on things, you're not getting paid. So a lot of times other young filmmakers who are making things, making films, they also have to have a job. So a lot of times they'll do the filming on the weekend. They'll do like Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, because they can also get cheaper deals on cameras and lighting equipment and all that. So a lot of times it's on the weekend. So you kind of have to have a job. Sometimes you can also get a job doing something that might not be what you plan on doing eventually. Let's say, there's certain places, certain cities that just have more film work, New York or Atlanta or Los Angeles. So you can go there and you can get PA work. You don't have to be in a union to be a PA, and PAs make they make okay money. But a lot of people will be a PA, or they'll be somebody's assistant, or they'll be somehow working around the film industry. That's the best way, just because now you're not only working, but you're also meeting people. And let's say you're working as a PA, let's say you're just an office PA, not just an office PA, because it's a but if you're interested in, let's say you are interested in the art direction side of it, a lot of times I would have people who would come in that are PAs, just general PAs, and they would come in and kind of like hang out in the art department more and like ask questions and just come and talk to me and say, like, what can I do? And there's been times when I've had somebody's been a PA on the movie, and then we're doing the next movie. I think, well, that one person would seem like they were interested in art direction. How about them being a PA in the art department? And then now you're a PA in the art department. Now you're even learning more. You're seeing on a daily basis what everybody's doing. And that could be the same with, like, you want to be an editor. You kind of go and hang out and try to get to know the people that are in there. So that's kind of the best. But at the same time, you're working on people's, let's say, people's just their own like shorts, or you're working. One of the ways that I always tell people to look is just, if there's a film school by you, that's always a good thing, because you can just go online and look. And people who are doing film, doing their films, their student films, they always need people to help. And when you're doing the student film, working on it, again, probably for free, they're probably going to give you pizza. You probably get some food. That's about it. But when you are there doing that, then I think the thing is, again, look around, and maybe you don't know what you're interested in yet. You don't know. You just know you love movies and you would like to be involved in movie making. You kind of look around and see what things seem interesting, what appeals to you, or like, who are my people? Like, who do I naturally gravitate towards? Do I like photography? Have I always liked photography? So maybe the camera department is where you would want to start, and you would, again, try to get to know the people. And, you might just get a job on another movie, even if maybe it's a small movie, but it's an independent movie, but it's actually, they're going to pay people a little bit. So I think it's always, my suggestion is just try to do as much as you can. And, you are going to just have to work for free sometimes. And eventually you'll start to be able to get paid on some different things. And then you really have to figure out like what you want to do, and then start to like focus on it and try to get to know people who are in that department. And again, you have to be, maybe it's not your personality to be, overly, I don't want to say aggressive, but like have kind of, really sort of go after something hard. You sometimes you might have to go outside of your comfort zone and, go up to the production designer, people working in the art department, and just kind of talk to them and say, like, how did you do it? Like, just if you ever need anybody, to work in the department or whatever, I definitely be into it. Because even like, let's say the camera department, the people that are lower in the camera department of a bigger movie, let's say like this movie, the people who are like the assistant camera people, they're also on the side doing, they might be being the DP on their friend's student movie or a little short that somebody's making. But they're, so getting to know that person, say like, yeah, if you ever need anybody on your on a crew, yeah, call me, because I'll come and I'd love to come and work and learn more about camera department and more about whatever part of it that you're interested in. That's a good question though. Anything else? Or yep.
Hello. I was just wondering, you're just talking about like camera, as far as like how do you work together with like the cinematographer when you're like figuring out the designs, particularly like how they're going to shoot something, if they have to bring like a dolly, the lighting. And I also have a more specific question. What was it like working with Dean Cundy? Because I know he was like the DP on Jack and Jill, but like I love Dean's old work, like everything did with like John Carpenter.
Oh yeah, Dean is great. Yeah, I mean, I have a lot of favorite DPs I work with over the year, but Dean is a good one. He's just a good person besides, and also super funny. But yes, basically, if you describe what the sort of like it's called like the triad of the people who are working on the movie. It's there's a director at the top, and then there's a production designer, and there's a DP. Those are the people who are working, like basically making the movie, like on the ground, boots on the ground, making the movie. Of course, there's the writers, producers getting the money, actors that are like doing it, but those are the three people. And a DP friend of mine, he likes to say, like, if we're there, there's the myself and the director and him are together, like talking about something, and then he'll say, well, they couldn't do much without us. And that's kind of true, because if you don't have a guy who's going to shoot it with the cameras, you don't have the person who's going to direct it, or you don't have a background to shoot, then there's nothing to shoot. So those are the people. So for me, the DP, besides the director, he's my other main guy, and I try to be friends with him and get to know him, because, like for example, on the scene that we just shot, the camera was like, some things are things that I would suggest, or I would say, yeah, I really like the idea of, when they first came in, that they come through that little tunnel. That would be cool to have the camera sort of pulling back and going through that, and being on their backs, going in, and then kind of dragging them in and bringing them in, and then cut to a big shot. So there's some things that I would maybe just, even if I'm presenting like my illustrations, I'll do an illustration which is kind of like, in my mind, how certain things would be shot. I always had a shot from way up above, looking down of the elephant and the guy, a dead guy there, and seeing all the people all circled around, so I would do a illustration of that, and then after that, that can be suggested to the DP. And for example, the lighting, I had, as part of our concept with myself and Jeremy, is that the beginning of that scene was going to be like white or lighter colors, or light purples and blues, because it was soft, and it was the peaceful part. But then, and then when the bride comes in, there's going to be a lighting change, and now it's going to get, the lights are going to get much more frenetic, and so that was really part of my idea, and the director's idea, Jeremy's, about how we wanted all of a sudden to start amping up the energy of that scene. And so that's definitely a cinematographer thing, because he's going to be lighting it. So now it goes from blue, and then it gets a little darker, and then it also gets to have like more moving lights. So those are all the things that he has to figure into his shot. And also knowing that we want to get up really high, so he knows that we have a crane, and he's going to have a lot of ideas too. And sometimes he'll say, well, what if we did this? Can you build me this so that I can do a shot that's in a certain angle that and maybe I didn't think of that, or, you know, I want to have a shot where we're looking straight up, and they're like, oh, well, there's nothing really up there. They said, well, I really want to do it. And I said, okay, well, we'll make the top of the set will be something interesting, you know? So, absolutely, the cinematographer, the DP, is one of my main guys, and I'm one of his main guys, because we can help each other, and we can make the vision of the director come true, you know. So that's a really good question too. That's kind of like the basic team of making the movie, is the DP and the production designer and the director. We always, when we go on scouts, it's always the three of us, and then there's always a producer there. You know, but we're the ones like going around and scouting and looking at things and seeing, okay, this is a cool location, but how do we do this? And then they'll be, well, maybe we have to we like this location, but there's no dock there. And we say, okay, well, maybe we have to build the dock there, you know, or maybe this is a good location, but where they arrived there when the helicopter came down, that water was really not even ocean water. It was kind of like, it was like a lake that's inside, and it was brown. And Jeremy's like, we can't have this. This has to be like really blue. And sometimes as you go along further in scouting, then there might be a visual effects person that comes along, and he says, I can make that blue. I can make that look exactly like the water that we saw in the Caribbean. So that's, I think, I think filmmaking is one of the things that I just think is really interesting about it, is that in most professions, or most things that you do, create or even creative kinds of things, let's say you're a painter, you're just painting by yourself, or your friends are probably painters. You know, maybe you have an agent who's going to try to, or gallery owner who's going to try to sell your work, but you know, so many different kinds of, there's so many. You're basically kind of, if you're a businessman, you're just with all businessmen. If you're a carpenter, you basically work with carpenters all the time. You know, if you're a painter, like a house painter, you just work with other house painters. But what's interesting about working on a film is, on a daily basis, you have a director who is somebody who's maybe more comes from a writing background, you know, and you have somebody who's more technical, which is maybe, you know, artistic, of course, but technical, who might be the cameraman. You have somebody who's comes from a more artistic background, like the production designer. You have the carpenters, who are like, they're basically guys who would build houses, you know. But then there's guys who, a part of their team, who are really good at like doing really fine painting, you know. Or there might be, like I said, we did a couple sculptures. So somebody who might be in normal world would just be a guy who does plaster, and now he's somebody who's a plasterer, but he's also a sculptor. So you just interact always together, and it's not just like, you know, you're a businessman and you give somebody some money to build a house, and the architect designs a house, and then he gives the drawings to like a builder, like carpenters, and they build it. Like, we're all together all the time. Like, the director he knows who some of the painters are. He sees the getting built, you know. He's working with like the technical, you know, visual effects people who are like super techie nerds, you know. So it's just like all these groups of all these different kind of people all together, just in a way like how we are right now, all in the same room. And we have Zoom just like this, and this and, you know, this person up here is the visual effects person, and that person over there, he's the DP, and this is like the directors down here, and we're all talking, and it's kind of a microcosm what really is happening in the movie, because we really are all different people coming from different places and coming together to make something that, in the end, if it works, it was not only a really fun, cool experience, but then you have something that people were going to be entertained by, or touched, or emotions, or that just sort of transcends the fact that all of us people worked on it together, something that goes beyond that, and it goes out into the world. And somebody in India watches this movie and they laugh, you know, and somebody in Mexico City can watch it and they think that they know all about soccer, so they got their soccer guy that they're laughing at, you know, or they're liking, you know. And that is actually part of the concept for this movie, that when we did the first one, the idea was that we want to have people from all over the world, this mixture of different people, so that it's really kind of, it was also part of like kind of like a marketing plan. Like now we can market it to all people who like soccer in Latin America, because we got that guy. And then, you know, we have different people from all over, and they really do like market it. Like when you see a commercial for it, that person, if you're in like in Asia, you're seeing, or if you're in India, you're seeing a lot more of the Indian stuff. You know, they're pretty strategic about it, you know, sometimes. But I think this the idea of it. And when we worked on this, we did have people come from India. I would talk on a regular basis with an Indian wedding planner who would we just call up and ask our questions like, is this like legitimate? Like, can we do this, or is it going to be bad? You know, are we gonna, we don't want to do anything wrong, so just tell us if we're doing anything that's going to be like culturally inappropriate, you know. And sometimes you miss things and something, but you know, hopefully for the most part you're, you know, taking advantage of everybody's talents and like bringing them together. So that's a good question.
To continue with Q&A, or do you want to circle to the Eiffel Tower? Totally up
why
to you.
don't I go through the Eiffel Tower first, and then we can finish, and then we can do some more Q&A at the end if anybody has any more questions. All right, so this, when we watch the little clip, it's a little longer than the rest of it because it's actually the end of the movie, and it's about 9 minutes long. So, you know, settle in by the time we get to there. Part of the Eiffel Tower part is we're out on the Eiffel Tower, and also we're in which is a famous restaurant called the Jules Verne restaurant, which is on the second level of the Eiffel Tower. I'll kind of point it out in a second, which we designed that as a set also because it was too small to actually shoot in. But we took the flavor of it as much as we could and really tried to make it like the Jules Verne restaurant. And when Jennifer came into the set, she was like, wow, I just went to the real Jules Verne yesterday, and it looks exactly like this, except for this is bigger. So that was good to get. You know, even she's like even these plates are like the exact ones that they had. You know, we really tried to make it like authentic. But yeah, so when we started, we just trying to figure out if we're going to shoot on the Eiffel Tower. Our first idea was that we were going to shoot there, but then, like I said, pretty soon we realized we're going to be shooting 20 nights because it's all night scenes and it's in the middle of the winter. That's going to be hard. So then we decided we're going to have to build the outside of the Eiffel Tower, and we're also going to have to build a restaurant because it's just too small. But we did shoot some things at the real Eiffel Tower, and maybe as we kind of go through, I'll talk a little bit about those before we see the clip. Okay, so Eiffel Tower, obviously it's probably the most famous, might be the most famous building in the world. It was designed by Gustave Eiffel in the 1880s. And when it was first built, it was like considered to be an eyesore. And it was actually considered that they were going to build it for a World's Fair and then they're going to tear it down. But as they were building it, Gustave Eiffel just decided, he just said, we're going to build this like it could last for 1,000 years. And if we build it well enough and people like it enough, then they'll keep it. And that's what they did. But it's funny to think of building this and then taking it down because it's such an iconic part of Paris now. So this is night, and it also has these kind of cool, like if you've been there, these cool spotlights off of the top, and it's really lit in a really cool way, like this. So we had to work and make sure that it was going to work like that too. So originally we got some of the original drawings, or we got copies of the original drawings, and started looking at what the Eiffel Tower looked like, and we knew we needed a space to be able to do a lot of a bunch of like fighting and things that happened. And it was supposed to take place on the top, but the very top of the Eiffel Tower is really just a walkway that goes around here. And really the middle part, this section, this is where the Jules Verne restaurant is, but this is also where there's a lot of area and a lot of walking space. And also, so we decided, well, we're going to make it look like this floor, the second floor. But even that, we wouldn't be able to shoot it because they have all these big wire mesh things that don't allow you to fall off or jump off for obvious reasons. But we had scenes where people were going to be falling off or thrown off there. So, and this is the top, which is basically just has a little walkway. So not really enough room to do. And as you see the scene, you'll see we actually needed quite a bit of room. So we basically decided we want the design of this, but we want it up here on the very top. So that's kind of how we decided. We took some creative license, which I don't know, maybe people who really know the Eiffel Tower, they would think, they faked it, but probably 95% of the people wouldn't really know. So we went to the Eiffel Tower, of course, and just went everywhere. We got like kind of carte blanche to be able to like go all over and climb down in the different stairwells. We knew we had a fight down in some stairs below, and you know, we knew we need an area that was pretty big, so we kind of looked at different parts of it. But the other thing we looked at, we started just looking at all the details, and we were like, man, there's so much detail that we're gonna have to do to make it look real. But we decided, you know, we're just gonna make it look as real as we can. We like these big gigantic wheels. This is actually a wheel that's like about like 8 feet tall, and these wheels are the things that make the elevators come, because basically an elevator, either you can take stairs all the way up, which nobody does, or you can take an elevator. It kind of goes in an angle, and then it goes in the middle, and then it goes straight up like that. So it's a really cool elevator. But they have these big giant wheels which turn, which like bring it up and down. So when I saw that, I just thought that's really cool. We got to figure out how we're gonna like integrate that into the scene somehow. So then we have the script, and I haven't really talked about this, how we do the script, but you know, you look at the script and you break it down and you see exactly what has to happen. And this was really kind of complicated because so many things happened, but what we had was not really what we needed. So we started figuring out what exactly we need. We need an area that's big, that you know, like a big open area. We need to be able to like throw somebody off. We needed to be able to like go down some stairs down below. So we started making a plan of how to do it. We really like these wheels, so we haven't figured out what we're going to use, how we were going to integrate them yet. But we had a stair that had a door that gets all shot up. There's a fight that's down inside there. There's an elevator that opens and you see some stuff. And then we just needed a big open area where we could have fighting and stuff. And we knew that a character was going to go off the deck here. So this is our starting of our plan of what we were going to build. We decided in the end, these got flipped over to this side and some things changed. But, you know, we just started looking at all these sort of computer drawings. We had all CAD, we made CAD drawings of all the things we were thinking about, but also lots of pictures of details of what we were going to have to do. Either like here you can see this is the line. We decided, okay, we're going to build this line, but if you look any shots that look up, which there are going to be, we're going to have a set extension, which is basically all this stuff, which you'll be able to see look as you look up. So then we started doing like more like mood drawings of what it's gonna look like, you know. And we know that on the outside is going to be a big giant blue screen that goes all the way around, and you can see the city. And then we thought, well, since it's a blue screen, we can make like, this is a famous a cathedral called Montemar on the top of a big mountain, but it's really further away and would be almost like a little dot. But since we're going to do whatever we want, we can make it look closer and bigger. And then we sort of looked at, we're going to have a big fight scene that's down underneath the main deck. So we're really going to probably have to build that. And then we know we have to have it up high because someone's going to have to get thrown off. They're going to be on a wire, so obviously they don't die, but they're going to get thrown off, but they're also going to be looking up. So we don't really want to build all this. So like I said, that'll be like, we're going to build up this high, and then that part's going to be like a set extension. But you know, we really had to sort of like choreograph the whole thing and see exactly what we're going to need, and how there's one point where Adam's character like falls from up above onto these guys that are down below him. So we had to have a place for him to like hang out. So this is what we actually did in the end. This is our set. This is like the biggest set that I've ever built. They're like 60 feet tall by and just massive. And in the end, we realized the only way we could really build it, because it had to stand up and be real, was we had to build it out of steel and make it like the real Eiffel Tower. So we basically built the whole top of the Eiffel Tower, this whole part, and then we built this part up here, which some of this wasn't steel, but this whole part was steel, and where all the stairs are and all that. And as you can see back there's just blue screen all around it, so that no matter what, when we're looking through it or out, we're going to be able to put the city in there. And there's blue on the top, and there's some blue that we put down on the bottom if we're going to be looking down. But you can see this is the top level. This is where the main action takes place. Somebody gets thrown, Jennifer gets thrown off, but she's swinging down here, and eventually she swings herself into here and climbs through under it, and then climbs up a ladder back up onto the main deck. So this is, you can tell the difference between, this is just like with the house lights on, doesn't look that cool, doesn't look that good, kind of looks fake sort of. But by the time you see it in the movie, now all the big bright lights are off, and now you're just going to see the lights that are on that we want to see, and this is a real working, this big wheel is really working, and we end up working this wheel into the scene where Jennifer comes up and kind of saves the day. But you can see this is like, part of this is made out of wood, and then there's a lot of it that's just made out of steel and like a real thing. This is all down below where they have this big fight underneath the Eiffel Tower. And here's Jeremy and myself standing here in front of our gigantic beast. We used to call it the beast. People would walk in there and they would just like not even know what to say, because it was so big and insane looking. And we had a real steel company build all this main part down here. And they just came and they built it in their shop, and they came and literally like in 2 weeks they built the whole bottom part, which was amazing. But you can see here's the background, the blue, and here's a stunt woman who's flying off, and she's in here and she's swinging back and forth, and she's going to swing into here and jump and land in here. And then this is the main deck, but like there's parts of the movie where the stunt woman, whose name is Kelly, who if you're going to come to these every week, I think in a week or two, she's going to do one of these, do a little talk and explain like her part of it. But she is incredible. We did shoot some at the real Eiffel Tower, and there's some shots in the movie where you see her just flying up, and other ones where she's kind of like dangling off of it. But she like, here's our set, and then that's the background, and this is the stunt woman Kelly. So she's wildly swinging, and she's going to land in here. But there's other parts where we're closer, and it's not really pretty much of a trooper, because she did this part where she was swinging, and she had to swing and like land in here and stand in here, and then she gets a gun, and then she climbs up a ladder that's over here that we made. But between Jennifer and Kelly, and Kelly actually like flying through the air on the real Eiffel Tower, the scenes looks pretty crazy. We had to be able to shoot up, like I said. So there's some of this part that's like that's just CGI extensions, and then this is actually looking down through the set, and that's the end. You'll see in a minute. We'll watch the end of the movie, the last 9 minutes, and see if you can see the parts that were the set, and see if you can occasionally. There's some parts where you can see the real Eiffel Tower, and you know what that is, and then part of the time they're inside the Jules Verne restaurant, and that's also a set, which is it's supposed to be up in here, but like a lot of the action takes place up in there, but on our little set. So that's pretty much it. So do you guys want to ask any more questions or any other things? It doesn't have to be about that. It can be about, anything.
Let's go with Liv.
Hi.
Hi.
So I was just wondering, you mentioned CAD earlier. I was wondering if there's any other like design softwares that are kind of the most useful to be proficient in if someone's looking to go into production design.
I think one of the ones that one thing that we use a lot of is we use SketchUp, which is that's probably one of some of the pictures that we had, some of my things that I showed were SketchUp. Basically, you just make a plan, and then you can make the whole thing, and then you can look at it. You can also move around in it, and we use some kind of version of that for even for the Eiffel Tower, like a more like bigger version. But SketchUp is definitely something you that's a good thing to learn for sure, because especially in the early parts of design, or even if you're working on smaller movies, people use SketchUp. So I'd say that's a good thing to learn. And also Photoshop is a good thing to learn, because like a lot of times we'll especially if we're going to do something that's in a real location, we'll take a picture of the location and then we'll modify it. We'll make, we'll show that it's going to be a different color and that we're going to build something onto it, and then we'll put some people in some cars and we'll make it look like it's on fire or whatever it is. So I think those are the two things that are really helpful, and those kind of skills sometimes can help you get jobs too, because you can just say, especially when you're starting out, they'll be like, you're working with somebody who's wants like somebody's an art director, like on a smaller movie or something like that, and you say, well, I know how to do. I'm pretty good at Photoshop, and then they say, okay, well, can you turn this into like, can you make this building like red and have all the windows be broken out and have it look like a car smashed through it? And then you can go, yeah, and then so you're making yourself valuable to to people because you have those skills. So that's that's a good thing to know too.
Thank you. Go ahead, Maria.
So I have a question regarding Paris. So I don't know if you're from Paris. I don't know. Like, I don't know if you speak French, but I was wondering how hard it was or it wasn't to manage production outside the US, and then like what are the challenges you might find if you get a consultant in Paris? Like, how was it?
In Paris, we mainly used the French crew. Pretty much most everybody we work with was French. I had a couple people. I had a guy that I had worked with before, was from London, that I brought, who was my sort of like technical guy on the Eiffel Tower. I kind of put him in charge of that. But most everybody was French. So when I went there first, I met the French film community. They know when movies are coming, and so we hooked up with a French production company, a producer there, and he had a couple different people who were they're called supervising art director, and they're basically a guy who's like my right hand man or woman. That's basically more a little bit more of like a, not necessarily technical, but more logistical kind of. And so he helped me put together like a whole art team that we were going to do there. And since he does that all the time, he has people like, he has his guys that people that do graphics. He has illustrators. He has set designers. So he had a team, and also then he knew construction people too. So we sort of lock in the people who are in that place, and that's a pretty typical way. Whenever I've done movies, whether it's in Montreal or Toronto or even if I go to New York or somewhere, you go. So I'm from Los Angeles. But you go to the place, you try to get into the film community of that place, and then if you have the right person that really knows good people, and the guy that I had that was my supervising art director was great, and he really had a lot of really good people. I ended up having a set decorator from England, and another guy who we also call him supervising art director, but he was kind of a little bit more like the technical side of it. But for the most part, everybody is French, and it's not always easy. Some of the people, people in the film business from other countries, usually some of the people, for sure, kind of the main people that you might hire, speak English or speak some English, so that you can, because they know that they have to have that skill to be able to communicate with the American films, which whether it's fair or it's not fair, we make the biggest movies in the world, basically, and the most popular ones. So English is the language. Basically, English is the language of the movie business throughout the world. So if you're gonna be in the movie business and you're from France or you're from Germany or Thailand or whatever, it's definitely good to speak English, which makes it better for us. Obviously, since Americans are pretty bad at speaking foreign languages. But they were all great, and some people spoke better English and some who didn't. Sometimes I'd have to have somebody who was, there was a couple of people that spoke really good English, and sometimes if I really needed to discuss something in detail that I wasn't able to get, I would get them to come over and say, well, help me explain what we want to do here. But I mean, but it's also awesome because they come with a whole kind of a worldview that's different than we might have. Like I ended up, I worked with a person who worked on the wedding with me, who is sort of my art director on the wedding, and he normally does a lot of the big fashion shows, and so I met him pretty early on, and he was awesome. He was an awesome dude, and really good. He showed me all of his a bunch of his fashion shows. He did a lot of fashion shows for Chanel, and I don't know if you ever look at those things. They're pretty, like, really incredible sometimes, the stuff that they do. So he just seemed like he was a great person to be able to be that I could work with on the fashion on the wedding. And also he knew different, since his work entailed lots of different crafts and different people with different skills. He was really good because they do a lot of drapery. Sometimes they do a lot of furniture. They do a lot of flowers. So he was a really good person, and he was just really fun to work with too. And he was great, really super talented. So it's awesome to meet people who are talented in other places that can really bring something to the party, and that are it's funny because, like, I've worked on movies like in all over in Paris and Germany and Canada and Thailand and India, in all different parts of the United States. And when you come to a place and you meet other filmmakers, we're all part of a big family, kind of. Even if you've never gone to that place, we all kind of come out of we all love films, and we all are hopefully good at the thing that is our specialty, and so there's a camaraderie and a love of films, and you have something to start with. You can talk about your favorite movies with French people or Thai people, and then they're like, oh yeah, I love that, that's my favorite movie, that's my favorite scene of that. You have something that is like a common language, which is just awesome, because you feel like throughout the world there's these other people that are part of our same family, and even within the filmmakers group, like, I can see, okay, these are our people, these are my people, these are the people that I relate to, and that I'm going to hang out with, and even you become friends with them, and they'll like say, well, we're going to go to this fashion show, or we're going to go to this this art exhibit, because like our graphics guy is having an art exhibit, we're all going to go to it, so it's kind of cool just to be able to, like, meet different people, and make a team, and again, it's even when I was talking about there's all different kinds of people that work on a film, it's even in one more level of other kinds of people that are working, just people from different countries, different languages, that all kind of come together. And somehow I'm always amazed when I watch a movie at the end, and I go to a premiere, or I go to just watch it on my TV, and I just look at it and I think of all the stuff that went into making the movie, and all the people who had an impact on it, and all the people who really were really a part of making it good, and it's incredible. It's kind of like an incredible experience to think that you can make a movie with so many different, just like, it doesn't have to even be a work of art, but a work of entertainment that so many people work together on, and somehow it gets made. And a lot of times I'm just be on a set and I'm looking around and seeing everything that's going on, lighting and people swinging from cables and like, cameras on cranes. And I'm just thinking, I don't know how this gets turned into a movie in the end, because it seems incredible, but it does. And I think that's one of the amazing things about making movies, and at all levels. Even the first things that I did, the first like small movies I did, and just a bunch of random people get together, and you get together for a weekend, you kind of go do some stuff, and you have some actors and some camera people and a director, and you just do this thing, and like a couple months later, here's a little story that's 10 minutes long that you all worked on and you all had a part of, and it, everybody brought something to the party. So it's kind of an amazing profession, and there's so many different things that you can do in it. And I think it's to find what's the thing that most gives you satisfaction and that you enjoy. So it's my 2 cents about it.
Let's take our final question from Melissa, and then we'll wrap up.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yeah. I'm just curious if it's a standard to travel so much when doing location scouting, like, because it's like a big expense to go travel a lot. Like, is that a standard thing, and do you find that helpful to do?
Yeah, I mean, it depends on the kind of movie or what you need. Yeah, I think it's pretty common. I mean, back in like the old days of Hollywood, like they just used to make all the movies in Hollywood, and they all kind of look fake, and they weren't really in the places. And then they decided to start going out, in the California desert and mountains to make like westerns. And then they started thinking, well, maybe we should go, further to like make other kinds of movies. So yeah, there's traveling. There's also not traveling. I mean, I know people who have worked on like a TV show, and they've worked on it for like 10 years, and they just go to the studio every day, and they have sets there, and then occasionally they'll go out into the real world to shoot some stuff out in the streets and things like that. But so I mean, it is a part of it, and also it's part of sometimes you just need to do it, and the scouting part, I always kind of enjoy the scouting part. It's mainly to find the place, and then in the case of this movie, we didn't even find the place where we were scouting, but I got a lot of ideas of how I wanted to make the movie just by going to places. So but there is a lot of scouting, and that's actually a really cool job too, because you just get to be you get to be with the production designer, you get to be with the director and the cameraman, and you're like in a place right in the middle of like the nucleus of everybody sort of starting a movie, and that's kind of cool, especially like if you live in a certain place, because some people, they might live in Puerto Rico, and if the movie comes to Puerto Rico, they get to work on the movie, and they know all the cool places where you say, where's a cool waterfall? It's like, oh, I got a cool waterfall for you, and then they take you there. It's like, where's the coolest beach? And after a while, they kind of know all the best places and different kinds of things. But yeah, there's traveling for sure, but you also, some people don't travel if you just work on something that's more like certain kind of a show. Yeah, so I've traveled a lot, because I've gone all over, and a lot of times you're traveling for financial reasons, because it's cheaper to go to Atlanta because they have a rebate in Georgia, or sometimes you have to go to Paris because that's where the movie takes place. So there's different reasons why you'll be traveling. Anything else?
Thank you so much for your time, Perry. We really appreciate it. I hope everyone here got some.
It's my pleasure. It's fun to it makes me happy to see young aspiring filmmakers, and hear your questions, because you have good questions and you're thinking about it. What things are important to you, and I would say it's a really fun, interesting, exciting profession to be in, but it's also hard, and you have to work hard and long hours. But in the end, you meet a lot of really cool people, and you get to go to cool places. And in the end, hopefully there's some kind of like a you have something to leave that that people can that people enjoy, and entertain people and make them feel better, and maybe make them laugh a little better, or make them cry or whatever. But I think it's a kind of a great and interesting thing to do. So I encourage you all, and good luck.